Hey, how are you? This is Bob Gums here in Uganda, and I'm bringing you the concern forum. Uh, I stepped away for a while. I had some personal issues to deal with, and lo and behold, I come back, and it seems like World War III has just begun. Well, I should say, what, 7, 8 days ago? And let me, for those of you who are not familiar, I'm Bob Gums, Robert, as my mom would say, and I'm a Navy veteran. Uh, Originally, when I was 17, I started off in the Army, and after a couple of years of that, I went to college, and then I joined the Navy. And I did two aircraft carriers, the Nimitz and the Saratoga. The Saratoga, I wasn't ship's company. I was an operations yeoman for Fighter Squadron 81, VFA 81. Uh, Prior to that, I was ship's company for the USS Nimitz. And in between the Nimitz and the Saratoga, I spent almost 5 years with the Defense Intelligence Agency. So believe me, I'm never going to. Hell, I'm halfway. I'm just halfway to a master's degree after all this time. So I'm not going to claim myself to be an expert. However, I do know something about the world of top secret intelligence. That's what I worked with when I was at DIA. I worked in the White House, the Pentagon, with an occasional side trip to CIA at Langley. Uh, so I kind of got an idea of how foreign policy works, how it's developed. I was an NCO. I was not an officer, but I mean, who do you think, at least in the 80s, I haven't been back to the Pentagon since about what, 90, 91? I don't know how it runs now, but basically, NCOs from the five different branches of the military, with some civilian help, actually, we were the ones that ran the Pentagon. We did the typing, we did most of the research. Uh, You know what makes a good intelligence analyst? The freaking ability to be able to read and write. Okay, I'm not, believe me, I'm not castigating anyone. I'm just telling it like it is. Um, so I look at what I see going on now, and I'm devastated, quite frankly, at what my country, America, is doing. Now, I don't live in America now. I came to Uganda, Africa, this past June. Um, I wound up marrying a Ugandan lady, and I'm still here. I got an idea to try and start some kind of, video media enterprise. We'll see if that works out. But that's why I'm still here. But I have to say straight up, and I know a lot of people will want to take my head off, but I'm ashamed of what my country has come down to. And I'm going to tell you something. For the life of me, I cannot understand why anyone in their right mind who's not high or is not psychologically delusional, why would anyone take the word of Donald Trump? I just, maybe because I'm a Black American, and like all Black Americans, we have a history with America, and maybe that's what it is. Now I know you have a few Sambos out there. I call them, I know. Excuse me. Yeah, I call them Sambos. I don't use the term Uncle Tom. If you did any research on Uncle Tom's Cabin, you know that Uncle Tom was basically, he was kind of naive, but he was a fairly decent dude. And it was Sambo that was the real son of a bitch. So I know you have a few Sambos out there, like that idiot senator from South Carolina, and that, what's his name, Brian Daniels from Florida. I mean, you got people like that. And what's the other clown out there in Texas? Hunt? Yeah, you got a few out there with that. But generally, and Black Americans, we understand the history of this country. We understand the psychological mentality of America. So maybe that's why um, Donald Trump doesn't rate too highly with us. I mean, this guy wants to tear down our history. Slavery never happened, or if it did, it was like a fun thing. Okay. So, I, I feel funny saying that because I come out of a Black Republican family. Um, my old man was from the American Virgin Islands, and my mother was from Virginia. And family lore has it that we came over as slaves sometime around the 1670s, 1680s. Okay. So, and I'm born and raised in New York, which is another reason, which is actually the main reason why I think that anybody that will believe anything Donald Trump says, you got to be freaking delusional. Okay. I mean, my God, I've been following this guy since I was what, 13, 14? Because, my parents were very active in Republican politics, in New York politics. Um, my old man was vice president of Morningside Heights Republican Club. He ran for the assembly in Harlem. So it's not like I have some kind of anti-Republican Party gene. If anything, I would say just the exact opposite. But the idea that people, especially out there in what they call so-called middle America, the heartland, whatever, that they follow this guy Trump. And a lot of these people, they take Trump's word like it's the word from Jesus. As a matter of fact, I've heard some of them say that they would follow Trump before they would follow Jesus Christ. So that really shakes me up. Really does. Now, I had to say that. I had to get it off my chest. And, I know all about, the Epstein files and all that. Um, I will remind people, and I say this as a native New Yorker, Donald Trump spent the what, late 70s, 80s, and going into the 90s, basically rubbing his sexual adventures in everyone's face. Hey, I'm the man. I'm a macho man. Women just want to tear my clothes off, or they want me to molest them, or what have you. And look, if you look at what happened, if you look at the periodicals, newspapers, what have you, uh, videos out of the 80s and early 90s, you can see it for yourself. Okay. I can't even count the amount of times that Donald was in and out of court, right? Trying to cheat the banks, trying to cheat his employees. All right. This is the character that middle America put it, you put your faith in him. He was your hero. And I tell you quite frankly, I don't think that America will ever uh, be the country that, those bright ideas, land of the free, home of the brave, we have a constitutional government by law and all this other good stuff, right? We will never get there until we get over the racial thing. And I know a lot of folks out there don't want to hear that. Okay. But that's just the truth. And if you don't want to, if you don't want to take my word for it, read American history. This whole thing about, oh, well, these immigrants are overrunning us. That's nothing but pure racism. Seriously. And for example, until the Italians were accepted as being Caucasian, the same vitriol was turned against them. And believe it or not, the same vitriol was turned against the Irish. Okay? The Mexican American War, where we stole basically all of the American Southwest, you had a whole regiment of Irish guys who had joined the American army, and they were treated so badly that they decided to fight for the Mexicans. What is that? The St. Patrick's Brigade? There is a statue for them at a school in Mexico, okay, for their commended for their bravery, right? So this kind of hatred and vitriol is nothing new to the United States. We like to think that we have outgrown a lot of this racist hatred, but among a certain segment of the American populace, it's still there. These people running around with the red hats. Now, I guess I just wanted to start off basically by telling you all that, well, just to say that if you take any bit of truth out of what Donald Trump says, I got a pal named Sigmund Freud, and I'm sure he'd love to talk to you. Okay. Um, Also, getting to the meat of this conversation, you have a president that's basically, I mean, he's physically, you can look at the guy and see, he's physically in disrepair, emotionally in disrepair. Uh, Also, you could see that psychologically, there's something seriously wrong with this dude. And it's like a question, it's like a thing about the king really has no clothes on. And unfortunately, you got a Republican Party that is scared because Trump has these red hat MAGA people, they're out there. And I know some of these Republicans, they're actually scared of being attacked, physically attacked, their, families being attacked. And this is what we have come to as Americans. Because I tell you quite frankly, now this is my opinion, okay? And you can take it or leave it. I don't really give a damn. But I'm telling you, I believe that Donald Trump's in his sick, warped mind, his whole thing is to basically destroy the United States of America, at least destroy it in terms of, what we have known, what we're used to in terms of courts, judges, the Constitution, presidential powers, so on and so forth. Okay, he is out to destroy that, and I don't know why mainstream media is not really talking about that. Sometimes you got to use profanity. Sometimes, pardon the pun, but sometimes you got to call a spade because this is our country, and now because of Donald starting this illegal war of aggression, we're talking about world stakes here. We're talking about the world's economy. We're talking about possibly nuclear Armageddon. Okay, and see that sort of thing will affect all you red hat wearing MAGA folks out there, and the rest of us. Seriously, he's even contemplating a draft. Because if you think that you're going to just drop bombs on Iran and they'll call it a day, you really are some kind of psycho. I mean, these people fought Iraq, lost over 1 million people, and then popped up and said, "Yeah, what you got now?" you know, this is what you're dealing with, right? And you have to remember, America has not won a war since what was that? August of 1945. Seriously, we have not won. Okay, North Korea and China fought us to a standstill. And what was that? 53. Vietnam, hey, they kicked our ass. We won every battle, but they still kicked our ass. A bunch of guys with straw hats and black pajamas and sandals ran us to hell out of North, ran us to hell out of South Vietnam. Okay. And then you have a bunch of people wearing, how do they say in the military? Wearing a bunch of bed sheets and sandals. Okay. They kicked our ass in Iraq, kicked our ass in Afghanistan. I mean, for over what, 20 some odd years. When the hell are we gonna learn? Seriously. This is not how should I put it? This is not the Democratic Party of the 90s that America is dealing with. All right. These people ain't gonna back down. And I think that they're gonna do us a lot of damage over the long haul. And I tell you quite frankly, I blame the American people for that. Seriously, those of you that voted for Donald Trump, this is what you are getting. And when you start getting draft notices for your sons, your daughters, your wives, your husbands, your friends, don't get mad. Don't point the finger at Democrats. Okay? Now, I'm not letting Democrats off the hook. Quite frankly, I think there's quite a few that need to be primary in the Democratic Party. Uh, I I had some respect for Hakeem Jeffries, but then you look at the ones that get the payday from APAC. Okay, I think that's the most successful lobbying group in American history, and that's why we are at war. Quite frankly, and don't get mad at China. China did not tell you to basically rip America. Rip away our industrial base. Don't blame them. Don't blame somebody else because you were stupid. Okay. I think that there's a valuable lesson there. Okay. America was stupid. A lot of those people in the so-called heartlands were stupid when they say, "Oh, well, this should be America first." No, no, it should be people first, and it should be done with, be said with a recognition that this is one world. Whether we like it or not. Okay, we don't live in this on this planet by ourselves. Okay, that's why you find America under Trump. They are digging hard into Africa because they want strategic minerals. And fortunately or unfortunately, I guess time will tell. Africa is a strategic gold mine. Okay, they got the young. Over here they have the youngest population. They have the most minerals on the planet. I would just caution African leaders to tell them, listen, you cannot deal with this present administration in America, in the White House, because they are about white supremacy. They have basically said it, okay? The most two prominent Black Americans, as a matter of fact, you could say the two most prominent Americans, period. The president of the United States sends out memes, what's it called now? Memes showing these people as apes, right? So I would ask any African leader here in Africa, why do you think you're going to get a decent deal? I don't care if you're talking about military, what do you call it, transference, military aid, assistance, whatever. or any kind of decent trade deal with people that think that you are about that much above a freaking gorilla. This is what Trump has done. Okay. Same thing in the Middle East. Now, some Palestinians, Arabs, what have you, I don't know, they might resent this, but you are the sand niggas. Okay. And I've heard that term used quite quite often when I'm in the Pentagon. All right. You are the sand niggas. The Israelis are white people. Okay. That's why if something happens, oh well, eight Israelis were killed, so on and so forth. But if something happens in Gaza or the Palestinians, it was reported that 75 Palestinians were blown away. All right, that is racism. Okay, and I think I've heard some people, especially out there in the so-called heartland, talking about, and these people who used to stand on these long lines to go to Trump rallies, right? I call them Klan rallies, but whatever, be that as it may. And I've heard these people say, oh, well, God sent Donald Trump to America. And I used to think, 'cause I'm not a religious person anymore. I mean, I went through the whole thing. I was a Catholic school boy, I was an altar boy. I even thought about going, for the priesthood. But then, as a friend of mine who happens to be a priest said, Rob, your problem with being a priest is that you got one head bigger than the other. So that that killed that. But I believe that even though I'm not religious anymore, I do believe in the Creator. I do believe that when it's all over, we have to answer for the things that we've done, and I'll let it go at that. And yes, I find the words of Christ extremely inspiring. And I'll let it go at that. But I'm thinking maybe there's a possibility that maybe God did send Trump to the United States. Because see, America's going to have a choice. You got a choice, right? Um, Either you're going to get on the path and be about everything that America claims it stands for, or you are going to follow Donald Trump down to the seventh level of hell. It's really simple, okay? And that's what this whole, war thing is about, and quite frankly. Now, I know a few weeks ago, what's his name? My favorite skunk, what's his name? Rubio? He was over in Europe basically telling Europeans, hey, go back to your racist selves and go around the world and recolonize everyone. Okay. And, the whole thing about immigrants and all that. Oh, and by the way, let me, while I bring that up, listen, you know who's responsible for most of the immigration crisis in this problem? We have going on now in the West, primarily between Israel and the United States. Seriously. Because, you look at the trade agreements with, for example, Mexico, Latin America, and Africa, right? You look at the conflagrations, the wars that America starts, right? It used to be Britain, but I mean, let's face it, America is basically they're leading the parade nowadays. You got to ask yourselves, you make life so unbearable to people in Latin America, Africa, so-called Middle East. I mean, what the hell do you expect people to do? See, and this is the primary cause for these, this immigration of people going to Western Europe, going to Britain, going to Germany, so on and so forth. So not to forget the fact that, hey, you guys in Europe, you had an empire, right? When you needed yellow, brown, and black people to fight in your suicidal wars like World War I, World War II, you had no problem dragging millions of yellow, brown, and black people, into your butcher's machine. Okay, in World War I, World War II. So to me, I don't know. Maybe I'm too soft-hearted, but to me, I think that when you tell people, "Hey, you're part of this empire, and you need to come and fight," even though it's not your fault, we started this calamity, but you need to come up here and die for us. You know, these people, right? From Latin America, Africa, Middle East, Southwest Asia, and Southeast Asia, right? They get the idea, well, hey, if I'm out here fighting and dying for these clowns, um, maybe I should take this opportunity to check out and see what the rest of the empire is about. Since I'm supposed to be a subject of said empire. So, this is the problem um, that the West has. Well, we can't trust this country because they're not democratic. Well, I have a question. What the hell is so great? If, as a person of color, all right, and I know my dear beloved friend George Collins, and yeah, I would call him a friend because, in truth, his mother and my mother were good friends. The Collins were what we call in New York holdouts, right? In West Harlem, 123rd, 25th Street on the west side, Amsterdam Avenue, so on and so forth. Okay. And I would tell my friend George that everything that you said is basically true, gospel. But I disagreed because he didn't like that term, people of color. But that's the only thing I disagree with him about, seriously, because, hey, that's what it is. You know, you, you come from Asia, Middle East, Africa, Latin America, you're a person of color. And I still ponder why it was okay for the West to go to the Caribbean, Latin America, Asia, Africa, Southeast Asia, and extract everything they could. I mean, for example, there would be no British Empire if it wasn't for India and Africa, right? So, why are you so upset when these people follow you home? So you spent a couple of hundred years ripping them off, ripping off their continents, right? I don't understand the logic. I really don't. But this whole thing, excuse me, this whole business about what Trump is doing, it's illegal. The man belongs in jail, quite frankly. Did we not have the Nuremberg trials? Did we not convict Nazis for waging wars of aggression? Now I don't, listen. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna catch hell because oh well, the mullahs and the religious leaders and all, they kill their people. who were demonstrating for democracy and all this other good shit. Listen, I think that's disgusting. Okay. Me, myself personally, as a native born American, I would not want to live under that type of system. Okay. That's why I'm so repulsed by what Trump and the red hat MAGA lunatics are trying to do to America. You know, I believe in democracy. But guess what? I'm a kid out the projects, New York. Okay. Um, I have my beliefs, right? And how government is supposed to coordinate with the citizens, right? And that's me. I think if you're going to use the logic that Trump and his crazy people are trying to use, when black people, when we were getting burned and lynched, right? And there were like race riots in American cities like every other week. How would America like it if Russia or some other country came and said, we find what you're doing to Black Americans, and we find the genocide that you are committing to the indigenous Americans so repulsive that we're going to declare war on you, and we're going to bomb you, and we're going to kill your leaders, and that's what we're going to do. I don't think Americans would like that. I really don't. Now, let me be honest about it. I'm what they call a one world. Okay, I guess because I grew up watching Star Trek. Okay, I believe that the salvation for this planet is that we all come together and we try to work for the mutual benefit of everyone. That's my in my heart. That's my belief. So you can laugh, you can throw bricks at me. I don't give a crap. Okay, that's how I feel. Okay, I believe that that is what all the world's religions essentially point to. Okay, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, what have you. Okay, so fine. You know where my head is at. However, the other side of my head, being a rational, critical thinking person, mankind, humanity, they're not ready. We ain't ready for that yet. Okay, the Creator willing, someday we'll get there, but not now. Right now, we are about nation states. Okay, I believe that with nation states, you have boundaries. Okay. Um, I think that when you have a nation state that insists upon being cruel, undemocratic towards a segment or segments of their population, I think that there are things that can be done to apply pressure to that nation state. But the idea of just saying, well, yeah, because what you're doing to these demonstrators, uh, etc., that gives us the right to attack you. Okay, that's what Trump was saying. Remember, a couple weeks ago, he was telling the Iranian government, if you hurt those demonstrators, you're going to catch hell from us. Remember when he said that? So, I don't think that's right. Seriously. Because same thing in Venezuela, right? That was another illegal action. Okay. Now, hopefully, humanity has at least evolved to the point that we're not just going to declare war or kidnap government, the leaders of governments because we don't like how they're doing their business. See? And I think that's what makes Donald Trump so dangerous. I think that's what really makes America so dangerous. I think it will be a generation or so before America wins back the trust of the rest of the world. Because Trump has put us, what, talk about China? You talk about Russia? Look what the hell you're doing. Okay? And that doesn't fly. It really doesn't. If you're going to, you know, it's just like a mom used to say, you have to stand up for things. You have to stand up. You have to be about something, right? What the hell do we say to the parents and wives and children of those American military people who have been lost in the Trump Epstein greatest adventure, going, just going to war and killing folks in Iran? What do we say to them? What did they die for? To protect Israel or to hurt China's oil supply? What do you say? And that stupid idiot Trump stand up there for the homecoming of our heroes, and this asshole saying, "What the hell you going to wear a white baseball cap with USA on it? You are a civilian. You are a freaking civilian. These people that were brought back to America, they deserve respect. They don't deserve a freaking circus. And as a veteran, that really pisses me off. Seriously. Because they had no business dying in the first damn place. Sorry. It's wrong. It's wrong. We put ourselves on the same level as 1941 Japan. They did the same damn thing. They attacked America while peace negotiations were going on. And Americans have done the exact same thing under Donald Trump. And people need to to realize that. They need to speak out on that. These red hat wearing MAGA people, they need to do one of two things: burn the goddamn red hats, or march down to the local recruiting office. Because if you believe in this clown Trump so much, then you need to be prepared to give your life for him. It's just that simple. And meanwhile, following Trump family tradition, not one of his useless ass kids ever put on an American uniform, right? And in that regard, he's just Donald is just like his dad and just like his granddad. Okay. And I look at people who vote for Trump, especially these MAGA nuts, and I'm saying, wait a minute, man, you so much into America. This is the guy that said that people like me, veterans, were suckers, right? No, wait a minute, were we suckers or chumps? I think, what did he say? Those of us who come through military service alive, we are chumps, and the ones that died in military service are suckers. Remember what he said about John McCain? Now think about this. This, the mentality. Here's a guy doing now. He got 4 student deferments, and then for number 5, he has, what do you call it? With his foot, Rabonsberg, right? Okay, now it's funny. The doctor that wrote him up for that happened to be renting an office in his father's building. Hmm. What do you think about that? Right? And now this guy is sitting up there saying, "Well, I don't know. Maybe we might need to have the draft. I'm not gonna say. You know, I would hate to be the grunt or the swabby out there somewhere in the Arabian Sea or the Indian Ocean that might die for this guy, that when it was his turn to quote unquote serve his country, he ran like a March hare. And then he got a whole family of young kids. And not one of these people, you think Barron, you want to see Barron, going into, joining the army or joining the Navy or the Marine Corps? Huh? You believe that? And see, this kind of ties into Epstein because look at the young girls who were raped, molested, abused, primarily working class kids. See? And that's another problem that we have. The elite, Epstein elites, they don't give a damn if you get hospitalization, okay? If your hospital is even open, if you live in rural America, hospitals are closed, right? Because of Elon Musk and his cutting, of the budget, right? They don't give a damn if your kids get educated, if their curriculum in school sucks. All they want to do, we gotta get all the books from black authors and Latino authors. We gotta get them out of the school library. Other than that, they don't give a shit, right? They don't give a damn if the area that you live, especially in rural America, gets hit with catastrophic devastation because they want to cut FEMA. They want to cut the warning systems that alert people, hey, there's a flood coming, right? They want to, they cut cancer research. I mean, who does that? I don't have the time to sit here and give you a list of all the things that benefit working Americans that these bastards have cut. And they have cut so much in the Veterans Administration. They have cut doctors, nurses, and now they want these boys and girls to go die for a war of choice. This is freaking insanity. Oh, and the thing that one of the big things that really chafes my shorts, as my drill sergeant used to say, how in the hell now everybody knows. I mean, everybody that has open eyes, right? They know that Trump is Putin's bitch. Everyone knows this. We have seen this. Donald Trump went overseas, stood right next to Putin, and said that he'd take the word of Putin, our supposed adversary, over the word of our intelligence organizations. Now, think about that. Let that settle in. And this is the same guy that was found to have boxes of top secret material in his freaking bathroom in Mar-a-Lago. I mean, come on, are we stupid here? What the hell is going on? And what bugs me about the mainstream media is that these are the questions that they don't ask. All right? I'm glad to see that some in Congress are finally starting to wake up. I hope it's not too late. I really do. But I think it's time that, people really need to start asking questions. And I would also say because I'm a registered Democrat, I'm a progressive Democrat who I think that Mondami is politically the second coming. Okay, so you can like it or hate it. I really don't give a damn. But that's where my head is at, and I'm curious why our leaders, our elected leaders and Democratic elected leaders in Congress, why are we trying to, tinker here and tinker there with ICE? We need to disband that goddamn organization. Okay? Why are you going to allow this sick, maniacal, egocentric president to create his own Praetorian Guard? to assault our democracy. Why are you allowing this? Uh, Hakeem, right? Why are you allowing this? Chuck Schumer, I don't get it. I really don't. Are you on the side of the American people or are you not? And when people talk about the Democratic Party being held in much less esteem than you think they would be, that's the freaking reason. Okay? Because Democrat as a party, we have been known not to fight. Okay? We have been allowing the forces of the right wing and these tech bros have just literally, oh, excuse me, and APAC to just walk the hell over us. And see, that's what rank and file Democrats are pissed off about. So, you got, sometimes I look at what's going on, I can't believe it. I really don't, you know. And these are just some of the problems that America is dealing with right now. Okay. Um, I don't know. Quite frankly, I think that any Democratic senator that votes to approve any one of Trump's, like this clown from Oklahoma, that's supposed to take the place. What's his name? No, screw him. No, vote no. And that's what Democrats should keep doing. Our position should be no on anything that Trump tries to run through the Senate. I know that Democrats are in the minority right now. It's not a great minority, okay? But you have to, for your own self respect and for the sake of history, you have to show people where you stood, okay? Biggest problem with Democrats, I'll tell you, as a member of the rank and file, it's not that you get your, that you get your, excuse me, that you got your ass kicked. Problem is that you don't fight. People, it's funny, man. Maybe it's some kind of animal instinct left over from prehistoric days. Okay, but people respect the fighter, even when he gets his ass kicked. And see, that's something that Democrats, they seem to have forgotten. Okay, you let Ronald Reagan scare the bejesus out of you, right? Um, Now, a lot of stuff Bill Clinton did, I'm not too crazy about, but he was able to make the Republicans respect what he had to say. Same thing with Obama. Okay, and a lot of things, some of the things Obama did, I wasn't crazy about. But oh no, was he a doormat like the Republican? Excuse me, like the Democratic Party let itself be betrayed as? No, I'll say no. I think he made some bad calls. I think that the thing that he did to Libya, I think that that was a bad call. I think that we didn't send anybody to jail for the whole economic banking collapse like some of the European countries did, and like this. But Democrats, hey man, you need to man up. I don't mean to be sexist, but I think you folks out there know what I mean by that term. And that's what needs to happen. And this business about Trump interfering with the states in terms of elections, all you governors out there, both Democrat and Republican, what you need to do, you need to call out your National Guards November 1st and say, listen, the National Guard belongs to the states. It does not belong to the president. And if the president wants to declare an emergency, it better be a good, you better have some kind of damn good reason. Okay. And a lot of you judges out there, you need to remember why you became a judge in the first place. And if you're not going to do your jobs, then God damn it, give it to somebody who will. Seriously. The Supreme Court definitely needs to be revamped. Um, the hell, like Clarence Thomas, guy that he has to sit in judgment of his mother. This guy pays for his mother's home. I mean, what the hell is this? And you, the American people, you need to get your ass in gear. You need to get your brain in gear, and hopefully your ass will follow. Quite frankly, now, like I said, I was halfway to a master's when I had to stop. So I think I'm literate. I think I can express myself, but I think that we're beyond that. Okay. I'm tired of, because many of these assholes that are tearing our republic apart, they got Harvard and Princeton degrees, for God's sake. So I just talk plain. I can just keep it plain to the American people. And geez, I hope that I made an impression. I hope that you will subscribe to what we're trying to do here. And I thank you for allowing me, into your home, onto your computer or cell phone. And, bless you all. Bless our troops who have been put in harm's way for no good reason, but who are there serving the nation. Okay? And hey, that's it for tonight, folks. Listen, bless you. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And what more can I say? Oh, keep reading. Keep paying attention to what's going on. And don't let anyone tell you that what you see isn't real, which is what they tried to do in Minneapolis. Okay? So listen, take care, be good to each other, and thank you for listening.